Hey everybody, it's Michael Angelo Caruso. We want to remind you, if you like these videos, you should click the subscribe button in the YouTube channel. And also give us your comments. This is pretty good content that we're giving you, especially today. My guest is Dan Dubreuil. And Dan, you're recently new to Rotary, yeah? How long?
Not even 2 years. I retired in early 2018, took about a year off to do not much of anything, and then started Rotary in 2019.
I always say that new Rotarians' opinions are more worthwhile than older Rotarians because your perspective is new. You haven't been brainwashed yet, but your perspective is even more valuable because of your background. Tell everybody what you retired from.
So I spent about 30 years in marketing. The first 15 years of my career was in corporate marketing for CPG, so consumer packaged goods. Worked with Unilever, Pillsbury, some other Canadian companies, Dow Chemical. And after that, I transitioned to consultancy. So I started working in consumer insights and strategy. Set up my own consultancy. Of course, you're in the consultancy world. My first client was Unilever because I was working with them, or the last employee I had, and that was a nice start to that career.
I got a good look at one of the slide decks that you put together for Rotary, and I was so impressed. I wanted to speak with you and do a deeper dive on the content that you came up with, because so many Rotarians think they understand marketing, but they do not. I don't know about Canada, but here in the States, people go to school for years to get a degree in something called marketing.
Yes.
And
yes.
Just because you make yourself the admin of a Facebook page does not mean you got it going on.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It is very much an art, maybe more of a science today with more digital marketing, but there certainly is art to it as well.
Let's talk about both the art and the science. If you would be so kind as to do a little play-by-play with us on this slide deck, I'm going to pose some questions that maybe average Rotarians or even above average Rotarians might ask about these conclusions that you've come to about marketing. Share your screen and
Sure.
get us into this slideshow so that we can have a peek.
Let me bring it up here.
By the way, everybody, this slide deck has been posted to the Get the Word Out Now Facebook group, and by now has been shared to some other groups as well, but that's where you can get high-end ideas for growing your club, raising money, and of course, getting attention for the greatest service organization in the world. Let's see what you have, Dan. Let's talk about this.
Absolutely. So I pulled this together a couple of weeks ago. I gave it a Zoom webinar to the folks in our district. Lasted about an hour. It was a jam-packed hour, and so I really wanted to leave people with the impression that there's lots they could be doing. That said, I really wanted to stress out of the gates that marketing on Facebook and building your club's profile there's no home run. It's a matter of singles and moving people around the base, and so there's a lot of little things you got to do well to be successful.
Yeah. So, by the way, your screen is not shared yet. Did we change something?
Okay.
Since our
Let me just a little glitch here.
And it's offering me a chance to share my screen again. Maybe I should do that.
Okay. Can you see it now?
It says you've started it. There it is. Okay, I'm in. Thank you.
There we go. Yes. Yes, no home runs. One of the things I did do for the benefit of being forthright with everybody is recognize that Facebook is a really powerful tool with a bit of a dark side. And I guess we've got to come to grips with that and decide as a club or an individual whether you're comfortable working with Facebook, given there are some issues with it today. That said, it is so powerful that it cannot be ignored in terms of a tool that can help clubs move the needle on building their reputation and getting the word out. Within Canada, so our club our district is within Ontario. If you think about Canada and Facebook, we've got roughly 35 million Canadians, our total population, so somewhat smaller than the state of California. 80% of them are on Facebook, and 75% of those folks visit each and every day. So it's a very powerful medium.
Yeah, this is important because if you don't mind me saying so, a lot of people are asking about, other websites, other platforms like Twitter and Instagram and so on. And I do think that you're more likely to get to younger potential Rotarians and younger Rotarians on platforms like Instagram. But right now, all the cool kids, all the kids are on this playground, the Facebook playground. Maybe not the coolest kids, but all of the kids, most of the kids are on the Facebook playground. And that's why you want to give an undue amount of attention to this platform, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and this chart kind of speaks to that. If you take a look at Facebook by age cohort,
There you go.
as we know, Rotary has somewhat older, members, so we're playing well with that age cohort, but it also does well with younger folks as well. Instagram, as you mentioned, very overdeveloped amongst younger folks. That is something that we're looking to work at, but we're going to walk before we run on that.
Yeah, and all these people so anxious to do Instagram. Make sure you're doing Facebook right first. There's no sense in doing two platforms in a mediocre way. Let's understand one of them, and then once you know that, you've got the secret sauce for most of the platforms.
Exactly.
Okay.
The fact that Instagram is owned by Facebook, they've actually made it relatively easy to execute programs concurrently. But please understand Facebook before you get to that stage.
Yeah.
The obvious benefit here is Facebook allows us to easily get the word out to our followers, and through social networking, or the followers of our followers. And I've kind of, I've described this to some people. You'd be surprised, some people don't really understand how social networking works. But the reality is if we have content and we put it on our page, we share it to our followers. And then if that gets, liked and shared, it goes out to the followers of our followers. And all of a sudden you may have doubled the exposure by a given message.
Yeah, those groups that you've outlined are not in correct perspective. The amount of people that don't follow your page, everybody, is thousands of times bigger than the few people that follow.
That's right.
And here we are in the time of COVID, where you've got a chance to reach out to so many people to bring in speakers that wouldn't otherwise belong to your club. This is a really, really good idea to introduce yourself to people you don't know. Facebook, by the way, Dan, in my opinion, has done itself and users a big disservice by discouraging people from following people that they don't actually know yet, which to me is like attending a cocktail party and not talking to somebody that you haven't yet met. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. And thankfully, that's where the power of pages come in. When you've got let's say a district page or a Rotary page, anybody can follow it, whether you're friends with them or not. And groups have that power as well as some other. But you're absolutely right that the relative size of these two shapes is totally out of proportion. There are so many people out there that still can benefit from learning about Rotary. One of the first things I did kind of out of the gates, I took on the position of chair of our PR committee at a district level 2 months ago. It's like, okay, well, how are we doing as a district? So here's a bit of a laundry list of all our clubs and the current amount of followers each and every one of our clubs has. And you can see some are doing relatively well with, over 1,000 followers.
The 80-20 rule is alive and well.
In some cases. And yeah, exactly. And some aren't doing well at all, which, you're not aware of the district. But some of these clubs that aren't doing well are not all clubs. They're successful clubs that are in well-established communities that are doing a lot of good work. So as I say, I'm very coming from marketing background and analytics and consumer insights. I'm big on numbers, and so my goal is to increase the aggregate number of followers in the district over the next 12 months. Right now, we have over 22,000 followers in our district, which when I think about it, kind of go, wow, if we're firing in 8 cylinders, we can do so much with all those followers. So that's one of the tasks ahead of me, but also it's to grow the aggregate by 20% from now until next year at this time.
I like something called the relative number. And the relative number, when you're speaking about districts, is most districts have about 1,600 or 1,700 people. So 22,000 is a large number compared to how many people belong to this district, but there are 36,000 people in our zone, which is zone 28. And so when you look at how many people there are in the world, in North America, these are relatively small numbers. By the way, you have been so inspirational. People are already going into Facebook analytics and manually tracking how many followers each club has so they can replicate this slide for their district. A little shout out and a caveat for people that are doing this. You're going to take some heat from clubs like the Rotary Club of Tillensburg, who think that somehow, after you do all this research, that you're somehow picking on them. And that is the furthest of our intentions, everybody. We just think that if Rotary clubs at the bottom of this list are suddenly aware that they're at the bottom of the list, that it might encourage them to raise themselves up in the standing. And when we identify clubs like the Rotary Club of Mississauga at the top of the list with 2,302 followers, that they become a role model, and then they start teaching all of these other clubs how to do it better. That's why we look at these charts, not to make anybody feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. Facebook is an ends, it's not the ends. It's a way to achieve success, and there are other ways to do it. But if we can get our clubs successful on Facebook, it makes life easier for them across the board in terms of attracting new members or attracting potential sponsors, organizing events, raising funds, which is essentially what we're about as an organization. So one of the things I did spend a little bit of time talking about was Facebook's algorithm. And algorithm is a bit of a scary word. It's essentially just, you know, the code behind everything that goes on in Facebook. And one of the things I was trying to stress was that if you know a little bit about how Facebook prioritizes the posts that they allow their users to see, you'll have a better chance of getting your posts seen by people. So we're not going to give you, you know, Facebook is not going to give you the full combination for the algorithm, but they may give you a, you know, a sense is, okay, if you turn the combination once left, twice right, once left, you'll get in. And so that's what we're hoping to do with the presentation, is giving them a bit of insights as to how that combination works. Because the reality, which a lot of people, you know, really aren't aware of, is that on average, when a page posts a message on Facebook, it's only shown to about 5% of its users. So the goal there is, if you get a more effective post, a more engaging post, is to grow that 5% to maybe as much as 40 or 50% of users seeing a given message. And if you can do that consistently over the course of a week, a month, a year, you're going to get more and more of your followers engaged, and you're going to get more and more followers as they share that content with people. So why is that number so small? It's very simple. You know, Facebook's an advertising company. Ideally, they want you to buy their messages, and they're more than happy to sell you boosts or ads. The real reality is there's all kinds of competition for Facebook screen time. You know, every time somebody logs on to Facebook, there's an average of 1,500 posts waiting for their attention, whether it's from a friend or from a paid advertiser or from an organization like Rotary. So Facebook, if they want to be a successful, thriving business, they got to make sure that every time a user logs on, they're seeing relevant, interesting content. And that's what the algorithm essentially does.
And just to be clear, you and I are talking for the first time, but I don't believe we're taking the audience in a direction of paid strategies exclusively.
No, definitely not. I mean, Facebook is looking for ad dollars, but if you are clever and effective, and organizations like Rotary actually have a bit of an advantage to, let's say, commercial organizations, you can get a lot of mileage out of free posts.
100%.
Quite frankly. Yeah, yeah. One of the things I described Facebook's algorithm is it works a little bit feedback loop. You know, if you've ever been to a wedding and the groom puts the microphone a little too close to the speaker, you get this feedback loop happening, all of a sudden it gets louder and louder and louder. That's kind of how Facebook algorithms work. It's got to hear a signal, and then once it plays back that signal and it shares that signal back into the system and it gets louder and louder and louder, all of a sudden you got a really loud noise. So if you want to get your message out there, you've got to give the algorithm a signal that you've got something worth watching and reading, okay? So the real reality is that the algorithm will share a given post to more people if out of the gates a post sees some kind of an emotional reaction. So, you know, something better than a like. A like isn't bad, but you want to get something better than a like a love or a smile or a wow. You want to get a post that generates discussion or comments.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I've had a theory for a while, Dan, and in fact, I'm starting to create a scoreboard because I think emoticons on the scoreboard are worth the least amount of points. That the algo likes comments, but they especially like shares. And they like numbers, of course, like 10 pieces of engagement per post would get you to maybe a sweet spot, whereas if nobody replies at all, it's not going to continue to show your post to very many people. And they like the posts, they like that the emoticons, the comments, and the shares that happen very, very quickly after the post goes up. I'm not too far off base on this, am I?
You're absolutely right. What gets the algorithm working for you the hardest is, in fact, discussion. So a comment on a comment, and if there's
Yeah.
more comments on that, they
Yeah.
understand that people are truly engaged.
Yeah.
And then reshare. So let's say I share to my friend, and they share to another friend who I don't know. It's not related to me in any way, shape, or form. Those are the two things that really get the power going for the algorithm, because Facebook realizes, okay, there's something that's really worth sharing and engaging, and
Right.
that's what allows it.
I've had a discussion with a couple of knowledgeable, and I do this because everybody thinks they're knowledgeable to some extent, but people who apparently have some sort of marketing stripe who want to argue the fact that when the page isn't opened up for things like comments or for other people to post,
Mhm.
that somehow that's better for the page. And I keep trying to convince them that no, the algo rewards engagement. They reward people who are bringing something to the table. And when you condition the following not to post, or it's what I call a bulletin board site where they're just, you're giving them information, but there's no give and take, that is not a healthy page, correct?
That's right. I mean, the reality is if you open up your page to comments, you will get more engagement. The downside for some people, and it obviously depends by the organization, opening up your page to comments invites an element of risk, right? Because you can't manage what people are putting up there. And if you can't manage it in real time, it could put your organization in some type of disrepute. So you've got to weigh those two factors off. But I think for an organization like Rotary, there's nothing but upside with having your page open for comments, for sure. I also mentioned in terms of consistent contributors, so the algorithm will recognize organizations that are consistently posting and reward in terms of it'll boost your ability to generate more exposure through an initial post. Okay. And then, so that's the posts that have our ability to do that. And then there's just, certain types of content that the algorithm favors. It's looking for native video, ultimately a video that is uploaded into Facebook as opposed to a URL link that would take you off of Facebook onto, let's say, a YouTube channel. It's looking for longer videos, 3 minutes long. Ultimately, Facebook wants to have people engaged on their site. So longer videos tend to do that. Obviously, if you've got a bad 3-minute video, you're not going to generate discussion or comments or shares. So those two factors have to be brought into consideration, but ultimately longer is better. If you can't do a video, do a simple animation or a GIF, and certainly if you can't do either of those, an image. At minimum, you need an image. You can also use tags strategically to get a little bit more profile for your posts, whether it's organizations.
Let's talk about, yes, great stuff. Let's talk about native video for a minute. A lot of people don't understand this. So native video implies two things. The first thing it implies is that you have the source file. Native means you're uploading it from your computer, everybody, to the Facebook page versus sharing the YouTube link, which is going to move people to the YouTube platform. As Dan mentioned, Facebook's trying to make money, and if you're sending people to YouTube, then they may never come back in that session. So they want you to upload the video natively. So it presupposes that you have the source video, and it presupposes that you're a content creator. And that's going to shut a lot of people down because most people are not creating content; they're borrowing content from others.
Right.
And this is why if you're an agent for Rotary on Facebook, that it's important that you're producing good content when possible.
Exactly. That's not to say that you can't share native content. So if you got a video that has been posted by, let's say, another club or a district, and it's inherited into the Facebook world as opposed to YouTube, and that's can still very be a good post to share.
Yes.
And it goes with it saying, try to avoid posts that use linked video concept or links to weak websites. So if you've got a URL in your post and that URL is to a disreputable website in some way, shape, or form, or a website that just doesn't generate a lot of traffic, the algorithm can kind of sniff that out, and it's not really going to share your post very far and wide if it sees that. It's also been they've been able to train the algorithm to find, clickbait, which is exaggerated claims that maybe an advertiser might use to generate traffic to their website. It'll look for that as well. And definitely do not ask explicitly for likes and shares. It looks for that language and says no. It's not truly engaging if you have to ask for a like or a share.
And weak websites can be defined by unsecure HTTP versus HTTPS. Is that correct or no?
Oh, you're talking out of my realm on that one in terms of the definition of what would be a disreputable type of website.
How would Rotarians know that they're sharing a weak website? What are some indicators that they might know about?
At minimum, it'd be a website that simply isn't generating a lot of traffic or legitimate traffic from a wide variety of sources. So a powerful website is one that is being visited on a regular basis by a wide range of people or organizations on a wide range of, yeah, legitimately. If it's generating a lot of traffic by one or two organizations, in the world of Google, it wouldn't be seen as a widely and popular site. That'd be very much a niche site. They have a role, obviously, and it's legitimate, but it's not widely seen as a powerful site.
All right.
So
I'm going to have a video that's going here. Maybe it'll improve our. I got a little delay. Hang on.
Sure.
Okay.
So yeah, the essence of posting with powerful, creating an engaging post is always have a purpose. In the absence of a content plan, if you don't have a plan for a given week or month or year as to what you're going to post and why you're going to post it, if you just wake up every day and say, I want to put something new on my page today, great. Understand why you're doing it. Who is the target? What's the message you want to communicate? Why is it going to be interesting to that target? And what response do you want to generate? Ultimately, you want to get them to go to a website. You want them to sign up for an event. What is it you want them to do? Be very, very clear about it. And then, as much as possible, try to be creative about putting the message.
I call that first kind of posting seagull posting.
Yeah, exactly. And targeting is so important. I mean, within the world of Facebook, you can certainly, buy targeted messages when you're just posting or boosting a message. When just posting on your page, it's less, you can't actually define your target. You're going to essentially all your followers. You can define your message, in terms of who do we think is going to find this appealing. Let's go for that one. Goes with it saying, if you do that consistently, you think in terms of a mindset of quality over quantity, I'd be much happier putting out 3 strong posts in a given week than flooding my page with a dozen weak posts that just aren't going to get any traction. And ultimately, the algorithm recognizes that, and it's going to reward you for that effort as well.
And remember what Dan said, everybody, the way you know that it's quality is the feedback loop. When you get 10 pieces of engagement on a single post, that means people liked it. It resonated with them. And what resonates? Things that are relevant, things that are high quality in texture, like high quality photographs versus lousy photographs. If your copy is well written versus shabbily put together with a bunch of typos, if it's thoughtful and original content, it tends to get a bit more of a bump. So don't post derivative things. That's what makes quality.
Exactly. We talked a little bit. We're going to talk about some of those points in a second, Michael. One of the realities is when you post can be as important as what you post. And the reality is, and this is at a global level. This is for all posts. But if you're posting in the middle of the night on a Saturday, guess what? You're not going to get a lot of engagement. If you're posting kind of midday, midweek, where there's people at home or people commuting or people at work with a minute or two to spare, that's when a lot of people are spending time on Facebook, and they're more likely to see your post, and then you're going to be more likely to engage them in what you put up there. So the whole logistics of when you post can be an important factor. If you've got the discretion, post when it's going to work for you. We talked a little bit about video. Again, video on an aggregate level is 2.3 times more powerful than just a simple photo. photo. Now, we all know that taking a video and editing and putting it on Facebook is probably much more than 2.3 times more time and effort is involved in that. But ultimately, you cannot beat the power of a really good video and getting the word out, and that's what it's all about. We talked about native video. Captions, so important. The reality is 80% of people who are watching a video on Facebook are doing an environment where they can't listen to it. And so captions become a very important part of the message. Luckily, Facebook has within its uploading capabilities the ability to put captions right on your video, even though you may not have done it. It's an automated format. You upload it, tell the widget to add the captions. It does that. You can review what it's added to make sure it's grammatically correct, and you can change the copy if you want to, and click a button, you're done. So you can essentially take a 3-minute video, add captions on it in less than 2 minutes, and you're in business with something that's really important to helping people engage with your content.
A question about captions. So are you saying, is the caption the title or the description of the video?
It's the description of the video. So let's say you've got dialogue within your video, it'll capture the dialogue and put it into written words at the bottom of the video, so people can read.
I see. So that's
so people can read what is being said if they can't actually hear it because of the environment they're in.
So you're referring to something that they talk about on television, like closed captioning, where the actual words I'm saying are coming across the bottom of the screen.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And that's done when the video is rendering?
Essentially, well, you actually technically upload the video first to Facebook, and depending on the length of the video, it'll take a minute or two. And then once it's uploaded, you have the option of saying, add closed captioning to the video I just uploaded. You can do it in any language pretty well, of course.
And this is pre-posting or after it's posted?
This is pre-posting after it's uploaded, so kind of the interim period. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll take you through the details of doing that, but a couple of simple screens will get it done. We talked about length being important as long as that it's interesting, of course, and engaging. Strive for high quality. More and more people have HD tablets and devices. So if at all possible, shoot in HD. But if you don't have that capability, use what's practical and/or get that capability.
That's a good advice for life in general. Strive for high quality.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of the formatting or dimensions, there's all kinds of possibilities out there, but the recommendation I put forward is to shoot in 1:1. So essentially a square. The image is a square on the screen. The reason for that is all kinds of devices have different dimensions. And if you take a look at some of the more common video formats, be it 16:9, 1:1, let's talk about those two. 1:1 essentially fits most screens without minimizing the amount of area on the screen that's not being used. What we're trying to do most of all is avoid this scenario where people are looking at the content on a phone, and you've got the 16:9 video that's occupying less than a third of the space. It's hard to be visually engaging when your image is so small.
Yeah. So let's break this down for people that may not understand. Most people would ask, well, do you want me to shoot it vertically or horizontally? What's your answer?
It would be horizontally, but a lot of phones and devices will have the ability to identify the capture size of the images as it's being taken. So you can then pick, I want this video on my phone to be a 1:1 as opposed to 16:9. The default of most devices, like the phone, for instance, would be 16:9. You would have to change that. And so once that's changed, the video content you've taken and uploaded on your phone, boom, it's 1:1, there you go. If push comes to shove, you can always re-render it, open up a video software program, upload the video, recrop, there you go. It'll take a little time to render.
Yeah, it's great information, but I still think it may be above the head of the average person wanting to shoot a video. You hear people saying which way to hold the camera. The simple answer, if you don't want to screw it up, is this way on Facebook, I think.
It would actually be the other way on Facebook, but that way on, Facebook, flip it the other way, you got Instagram. Yeah.
This way for Instagram.
Correct. Yeah. Instagram is very much a portrait, let's call it portrait-driven world. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So this way on Instagram, this way on Facebook.
Yeah. If you can't do one, use horizontal and
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about privacy laws and content. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but ultimately we want to make sure that what our clubs are putting up is in fact legal. And so we talked about the reality is when you're out in public, you can shoot what you want, as long as, you know, the people that you're shooting, they have a, you know, you're doing it in a way that respects their privacy. But you cannot take what you've shot in public and just put it up. You need the permission of the main object of your video. Ideally, that would be written permission. In the absence, it would be verbal permission. In the absence of that, it may be some kind of permission that is stated at the entrance of, let's say, or a building, an organization, or a meeting room that says, you know, by entering this premise, you're allowing, you know, some instances of your image to be posted in public, those types of things. So you look for that type of
let's talk
permission.
About it. Yeah, neither of us are attorneys, everybody, but,
no.
But both of us have a lot of practical experience with this. So I think most people are clear that you're not supposed to take a picture of somebody in the washroom and post it. The gray area becomes, well, can I take a picture of people in my Rotary Club at a cocktail reception and post them? Are you saying that they need to have people sign a consent form to do this?
That's a good question. Actually, that question came up during the webinar, and I don't have an answer for it per se. Although some clubs ask their, because we're talking specifically about that club environment, some clubs will ask all members essentially sign a privacy release saying that, you know, by coming to Rotary events, you're essentially allowing the club to use your likeness
Yes.
on social media content. Now, there are individuals who won't sign for whatever reason. That you got to respect their privacy and their rights on that, which makes it a little bit challenging to shoot a broad setting like that and try to avoid them. You certainly wouldn't want to make them the focus of your video. If they get captured in the background and they're tangential to the story, I don't think it would be a big deal for most people. And
have you heard of anybody getting sued or even being reproached for taking an inappropriate photo and not honoring somebody's request? Is this a common thing?
Not within Rotary, I haven't heard of it, but it does go before the courts every now and then where somebody feels that even though they weren't the primary subject of the video and in the background, that they had their rights violated. The law as it's written in Canada, it's a reasonable expectation of privacy, those words. And what is reasonable to one person is not reasonable to another. So ultimately it's up to a judge to decide.
I'll add another variable to this, and I think it's even more important, and again, I'm not an attorney, but I think it's even more important than the reasonable expectation of privacy, which now most people are okay with. I mean, imagine how many times you recorded just going to the store downtown, cameras at the intersections, cameras when you come into the store, all kinds of satellites working.
Right.
Is taking a picture and then selling it for profit is definitely a no-no. And right. I think that one will find you in court a lot faster than this stuff. But that's just my opinion. Yeah, so be careful. Use your best judgment, everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. You also talked about, if you're using video that's been produced by a professional in some way, shape, or form, that you got to make sure that you've got the rights to use that video. And the best way to do that is to investigate, the source. You could buy, for instance, I subscribe to Canva, and there's all kinds of video content on that website. And the fact that I pay our monthly allowance to Canva allows me to use that video in public, because that's essentially the rights that I so just know what you're getting and know where you're getting it from, understand the different laws and the rights associated with it. And it's not by any means an easy call in some cases. There are literally dozens and dozens of different ways that video content or images can be copyrighted under the law, and you've got to be, you don't want people to be aware, but you just got to be aware of what you're using.
Yeah, we're back to that thing about producing good content and working with friends and people who understand the Rotary mission and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if we could go back to the slide that you created with the following of the individual Rotary clubs in your district. Maybe this would be a good way for us to wrap up our conversation today. And if we get good feedback on this video, we can always do part 2 down the road. I really like your style and how you think. This is the slide, everybody, that talks about clubs that actually understand engagement. If they don't understand it, they certainly lucked into a good formula. We're talking in this case about, and let's give them a shout out, the Rotary Club, Rotaract Club of Mississauga, the Rotary Club of Guelph, the Rotary Club of Kitchener and Grand River. By the way, the club that seems to be leading the race by a ton is a Rotaract Club, Dan, which I assume are younger members who may understand social media a little bit more naturally, say, than some of the older Rotarians. Would that be a good guess?
That's a very good guess. And as you can see, there's also a Rotaract, there's another one in the top 10, although they're a very small club. They got 747 followers. So yeah, Rotaractors are doing a few things right and understanding the power of social media.
We mentioned the 80-20 rule a little bit ago, that of the, say, 50 clubs here, a small cluster of them are really leading the pack. Let's close our conversation today by giving clubs and specifically Facebook admins a chance to come to the table and replicate this success in their part of the Rotary world. Let's draw some quick conclusions based on your content today that we can infer from these results that these top clubs are probably doing the following, colon.
Right.
Let's do a quick summary. I mean, we might even play some ping pong here back and forth. What do you suppose rule number 1 is that they're following in order to become at the top of this list?
Well, they're with it at the posting regularly. You know, they're sizable clubs that are curating their content. They're asking their members. So let's say an average club might have 15 members. They're asking their members to go to Facebook, to follow their page, and to share their posts. So it's very much an explicit request. So you're not corrupting the system. You're basically just leveraging the power of a Rotary Club where we're all working for the common good. And if you get your followers sharing content, that's what kicks that algorithm into gear. It's like, wow, all of a sudden, if you've got 10 members of the club that are constantly looking at your content and sharing with their friends, you're off to the races. And that's what these clubs are doing on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'll add to the list. I think that I'll bet if we looked at, and we could do this sometime, we can look at these Facebook timelines for these various clubs. We'll find out that this content is more than average in terms of interesting. They're unique photographs, they're unusual posts, they're not the same old that you see. You know, there are so many people that belong to multiple Facebook groups, and we know their drill by now. They find a piece of content, Dan, and then they copy paste it to 10 pages.
Right.
And is it any wonder that so much of the content is pedestrian these days? It's something you've already seen someplace else.
Right.
I'm going to guess that these clubs are posting more compelling content than the average Facebook page.
Yeah. On top of that, I mean, every club typically runs a fairly large fundraiser or event throughout the course of the year. These clubs have leveraged those events to really create interesting content. So kind of the, you know, whether it's behind the scenes story of what it takes to pull together a rib fest, or whether it's kind of in the moment, here we are, we're having a blast, come on down today. So content that is capturing real time, that's worthy of sharing real time. That's what they're doing. They're seizing those opportunities to create something that's interesting for people within their community to share with others. So. We've got, within Burlington, we've got Canada's largest Rib Fest. The Rotary Club that runs that actually has 7,000 followers for that event. They decided to set it up as a separate page. But it speaks to the fact that if you really do a good job of curating content around an event like a Rib Fest, you can really grow your following, which makes running that event on an annual basis so much easier. You can just go straight back to those followers, get the word out to them, and all of a sudden they're sharing with their friends.
Yeah, I'll add another wrinkle to this success formula. Not a wrinkle, but something that we can all think about. I think ego is a powerful motivator. When you're posting the photos of other people, they want to see their own photos. And when you're tagging people and asking them specifically what they think, like you could pose a question and then ask 5 people who are what Malcolm Gladwell might call sneezers.
Right.
sneezers are really good at, getting the word out. It's probably a little nasty to say this now, but sneezers are good at infecting other people with good messages. And that when you tag those 5 people in the question, that they'll show up in the commentary, and that's what's called in the busking trade, salting the tip jar. You're actually seeding, SEEDING, commentary in your own post. And I'll bet we see this on these top pages as well.
That's right. That's right. So I call it, later on in this presentation, we talk about the power of advocates. And so you've got to get half a dozen advocates within your club, more so if you can get them, who are constantly, prodding the message on so it's got more power. And sometimes that's all you need is if it's so easy to scroll past a post that doesn't seem to have any engagement because, you'll say, oh, nobody's commented on it so far. How interesting could this be? But if you see 3 or 4 comments on it, you may actually slow down, take that extra half second to see what it's all about. And then, boom, all of a sudden you're engaged.
100%. Well, Dan Dubreuil, you really know your stuff, man. Which of these clubs are you in?
I've recently switched it over to the Burlington Club North. So yes, I was at Burlington Club Lakeshore, great club. They run, like I said, they run the Rib Fest. They do a really good job at that one big event. And I figured, okay, well, they seem to have it under control. I'm going to go to a club that maybe needs some help growing their event a little bit bigger. And the folks at Burlington North are just a great club, and I really enjoy it.
I'm looking for your rating.
So oh, where are we here? We're in the middle of the pack at 533.
Okay, not bad.
Yeah.
And I know with your help that you're going to get higher. But you've done us a great service today because you're teaching clubs all over the Rotary world to be better on Facebook, to get more engagement, to improve our messaging on the most popular social media platform in the world still. I don't care what the younger people are saying. It's still the most popular. And once we figure this out, of course, we can tackle Instagram and Twitter and whatever's next. Dan, you're fantastic, man. Thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge. Welcome to Rotary. It's only been a couple minutes since you've been with us. I'm so impressed with you, and I really want to thank you for taking the time to do this interview today.
Oh, my pleasure. Nowhere to go but up. This is great. I really, I love working at the district level, and working with all the clubs has been a real pleasure. And we're off. They're doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to cast aspersion on any club. We're a volunteer organization. We're all working hard to get the job done, and then whatever I can do to help them along, it's just great.
Fantastic. You can press stop recording whenever you want, and when you get it rendered, you can send it over to me. We'll get it posted on the Get the Word Out Now